Who are you really? Have you ever paused in the middle of your busy life and asked yourself, who am I? Is there really a self that is solid, unchanging, and separate? From the moment we're born, we're taught to believe in a fixed identity. This is me, we think. A name, a body, a personality, a collection of memories and plans. We cling to this idea of I, nurture it, protect it, defend it. It becomes the center of our universe, the lens through which we experience every joy and every sorrow. Yet the Buddha's teaching turns this assumption upside down. Buddhism says the self we guard so fiercely is not what we think it is. In fact, it's not really there in the way we imagine. The sense of I is a useful convention, but when we look deeply, we find it's just an ever-shifting process, a collection of conditions, thoughts, feelings, and habits that arise and pass away. The grand illusion: imagine spending your whole life guarding a house that turns out to be made of smoke. You install locks, build fences, argue over boundaries. But when you try to touch the walls, your hands pass right through. That's what the Buddha meant when he spoke of Anatta, the truth of non-self. It's not that you don't exist at all. Clearly, there is a living, breathing organism here. You feel pleasure and pain. You make choices. You interact with the world. But the idea of a single, permanent, independent self behind all these experiences is an illusion. What you call you is really just a flow. Sensations, perceptions, thoughts, habits, memories. None of these pieces stays the same for even a moment. Yet, because the mind wants something solid to cling to, it strings these fleeting moments together into a story. This is me. The problem is, when you mistake that story for a real, unchanging entity, you suffer endlessly trying to protect it, polish it, and defend it from the natural changes of life. Where did the I go? If you sit quietly and watch your mind, you can see it for yourself. Notice how your thoughts appear. I want this. I hate that. I'm afraid. But who is this I? Look closer. You won't find a single point where the self lives. Instead, you find a stream, an endless series of thoughts, sensations, memories, emotions, all bubbling up and fading away. Sometimes you feel brave, sometimes timid, sometimes loving, sometimes selfish. Sometimes your body is healthy and strong. Other times, it's tired or in pain. Everything you think of as me is constantly changing. If the self were truly fixed and permanent, you wouldn't grow older, your moods wouldn't shift, your beliefs wouldn't evolve. But they do, endlessly. Why does this matter? At first, the teaching of non-self can sound cold or unsettling. Many people fear that if there's no solid I, then life must be meaningless. But the Buddha didn't teach this to make us feel empty inside. He taught it to free us from a prison we don't even know we're in. When you deeply see that the self is not fixed, you stop clinging so tightly. You become less defensive, less anxious about your reputation, your status, your identity. Criticism stings less. Praise inflates you less. You become more flexible, more open, more compassionate, because you see that everyone else is caught in the same illusion, clinging to a fragile self that doesn't hold up under careful inspection. What happens when you see through the illusion? If you've ever felt hurt by an insult, notice what is really hurt. A word hits your ears, a thought arises, they shouldn't say that to me. But if you look for that me, where is it? All you find is a passing emotion, a tightness in the chest, a story in the mind. When you see that clearly, the power of the insult weakens. There's no permanent self to protect. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent. Instead, you become freer. You can respond wisely to life instead of reacting blindly to defend a phantom self. You can take care of your body, your mind, and your relationships without clinging to them as mine in a rigid way. When the idea of self softens, love becomes deeper and less selfish. Fear shrinks because there is no solid ego that can truly be destroyed. You start living more lightly, open to each moment as it is, rather than being trapped in a tight shell of who you think you are. The practice of seeing through the self, the Buddha didn't ask us to take his word for it. He invited us to look directly through meditation and mindful living. When you sit quietly and observe your thoughts, notice how they arise without your permission. Notice how they pass on their own. Notice how sensations shift, how feelings come and go. Who is controlling this? Where is the master behind the show? The more you look, the less you find. And paradoxically, the more freeing life becomes, bit by bit. You discover that letting go of the illusion of self doesn't mean erasing your personality or denying your humanity. It means not being trapped by it. It means you can hold your roles and identities lightly. Parent, child, friend, leader. Knowing they're real in a practical sense, but not ultimate truths. You play your parts in life with sincerity and care, but you don't lose yourself in them. A taste of freedom. In the end, seeing through the illusion of self is not about abstract philosophy. It's about liberation. When you stop spending so much energy defending a phantom, you have more room for joy, compassion, and true presence. You touch a deeper peace, the peace that comes from knowing there is nothing permanent to cling to, and therefore nothing permanent to fear losing. So next time you hear that inner voice whispering, I am this, I am that, pause, look for the I, look directly. What you find might surprise you, and what you don't find might just set you free. Part 1. The self you believe in. From the moment you were born, you were given a name. You were wrapped in a family's hopes, shaped by culture, language, and the stories people told you about who you are. You learned to say, I am John, I am Maria, I am smart, I am not good enough, I am strong, I am broken. Each thought, each label, each memory added another layer to this thing you call me. Without realizing it, you came to believe there is a solid, separate, unchanging I behind all these words and stories, something you must protect, improve, and defend at all costs. How we talk shapes what we believe. Every day, you use this idea of self as if it were obvious and real. You say, I'm happy, I'm angry, I failed, I succeeded. These statements feel so normal that you rarely stop to ask, who is this I that feels happy? Who is angry? Who exactly failed or succeeded? Most of us never question it. We live with the silent agreement that I is the true owner of all thoughts, feelings, and actions. A permanent core somewhere inside, pulling the strings and experiencing life. But if you look closer, you might begin to sense that this owner is not so solid after all. The Buddha's radical teaching. The Buddha didn't deny that we exist in a practical sense. Obviously, you experience life, make choices, and interact with the world. But he taught that the I you believe in is not what you think. What we cling to as a fixed self is really just a collection of ever-changing parts. He described these parts in 5 groups, known as the 5 aggregates skandhas. Form rupa, your physical body. Flesh, bones, senses. Feelings vedana, the raw sensations of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral that arise in contact with the world. Perceptions samjna, the labels you put on things, recognizing a color, a face, a word. Mental formations sankhara, thoughts, intentions, emotions. All the mental habits that shape how you react. Consciousness vijnana, the basic awareness that experiences sights, sounds, tastes, and thoughts. These 5 come together in each moment to create the experience of me, but none of them, alone or together, is a permanent self. They're like ingredients in a soup, changing constantly, mixing, dissolving, forming new patterns, always shifting, never fixed. Think about your body. Is it the same body you had as a child? Every cell has changed. Your face has changed. Your strength, your health. What about your feelings? Yesterday you might have felt sad. Today you feel hope. Tomorrow, maybe worrying again. Thoughts are even quicker. A single day can bring thousands of thoughts, each one coloring your sense of self. One moment you think, I'm a good person. The next, I'm terrible. If the self were truly fixed, how could these thoughts shift so easily? A convenient illusion. So why do we cling so tightly to this idea of I? Because it's useful without a sense of self. It's hard to function in the world. You need the idea of I to navigate relationships, responsibilities, and choices. You need it to say, I will do this, I won't do that. But the trouble begins when you forget that it's just a useful convention, not an absolute truth. When you mistake the label for reality, you suffer, you cling to your identity, defend it, compare it, and fear its loss. You feel wounded when someone attacks it, or desperate when you think it's not good enough. What happens when you question it? If you pause for a moment and gently question this I, a door opens. You see that what you call self is more like a process than a thing, like a river that appears continuous, but is never made of the same water twice. This is not about denying your existence or pretending you're a ghost. It's about seeing clearly. There is no unchanging I you can point to. There is this body, changing. There are feelings, changing, thoughts, changing. Awareness itself flows from moment to moment. When you understand this deeply, life becomes lighter. You're no longer so desperate to hold your identity together. You don't have to be so afraid of change, because change is all there is. A simple reflection the next time you feel caught in strong emotion, anger, fear, pride, pause and ask, who is feeling this? Where is this I that owns this anger? You won't find a solid answer. You'll find sensations in the body, thoughts in the mind, a story unfolding, but no permanent self behind the curtain. Freedom in letting go. The Buddhist teaching of knowing self is not a dry concept. It is a living insight that frees you from so much unnecessary suffering. When you see that I is not fixed, you can still act in the world, love, work, dream, but with less fear and more compassion. You don't need to destroy your personality. You don't have to become an empty shell. You simply live with a softer grip, open to change, open to life as it is, open to the deep peace that comes when you stop protecting what was never truly there. So who are you, really? Keep looking. Keep asking. The more deeply you look, the closer you come to a freedom that has been waiting for you all along. Part 2. The Five Aggregates and the Illusion of Self. More than 2,500 years ago, the Buddha looked deeply into the nature of human existence and shared a radical insight. What we think of as I is not a solid, separate entity, but a collection of constantly changing parts. He described these parts as the five aggregates or skandhas in Sanskrit. These five aggregates are like the ingredients of a recipe. When combined in each moment, they create the temporary experience of self. But just as a meal disappears bite by bite, the sense of self is momentary, a flow, not a thing. One form rapa. The body, the first aggregate is form, the physical body. Flesh, bones, organs, the senses, all the physical aspects that let you interact with the world. Your body seems solid, but it changes from the moment you're born until the day you die. Cells die and renew. Your face ages, injuries heal or leave scars. Every breath, every heartbeat is change in motion, yet we cling to the body as me or mine. We suffer when it changes, gets sick or fails to match our ideals. We fear its decay, fight to maintain its youth, and measure our worth by its appearance. All while forgetting that it is impermanent by nature. To feeling Vedanan, sensations, the second aggregate is feeling, the raw sensations that arise when your senses contact the world. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, this basic reaction happens all the time, shaping how you move through life, a taste, a sound, a memory. Instantly your mind judges. I like it, I hate it, I don't care. We chase pleasant feelings and push away unpleasant ones. But feelings are fleeting. Like waves on the ocean, they rise and fall, never staying the same. Yet when a strong feeling arises, we say, I am happy, I am miserable. We mistake a passing sensation for the solid ground of who we are. 3. Perception, Sajjan. Recognition. Next is perception, the mind's ability to recognize and label. You see a shape and know it's a tree. You hear a sound and know it's a bird. You remember a face, a name, a story. Perception helps us navigate the world, but it can also bind us. We label ourselves. I am this kind of person. I am smart. I am a failure. We label others too, turning complex beings into fixed ideas. Friend, enemy, stranger. But labels are shortcuts, not reality. Like sticky notes, they help us organize our experience, yet they never capture the whole truth. For mental formations, sakra, thoughts and intentions. The fourth aggregate is mental formations. All the thoughts, emotions, habits, intentions, and reactions that shape our behavior. These are our mental patterns, the things that drive us to act, speak, and think in certain ways. Mental formations include love, hate, generosity, jealousy, kindness, anger. Some are wholesome, some unwholesome, some neutral. They constantly arise and pass, influenced by past habits, upbringing, and choices. But here's the catch. These formations are not fixed either. You can train them. You can weaken anger, grow compassion, change how you react. Yet we say, that's just who I am. We forget that what we call personality is just a cluster of habits, all impermanent, all transformable. 5. Consciousness, Vijnana. Awareness. The fifth aggregate is consciousness, the bare awareness that knows sights, sounds, tastes, smells, thoughts, and feelings. It's like a lamp that lights up whatever it touches. But the light itself does not hold on to anything. We mistake this flow of awareness for a permanent self, but consciousness, too, is always changing. It depends on conditions. When you sleep without dreams, where is your usual stream of thoughts? When you're lost in deep focus, your usual sense of self may fade or feel different. Together, they create the illusion. When these 5 aggregates work together, they create the illusion of a solid I. But like pieces of a machine, they each have their own causes and conditions. No part is you alone, and no part lasts forever. It's like lighting a fire. The flame looks solid and constant, but it's really a continuous process. Fuel, heat, and oxygen interacting in each moment. Blow out the flame, and it disappears, because it never existed as a thing on its own. The self is like this flickering flame, a process mistaken for a permanent identity. Why this matters: the Buddha didn't teach the 5 aggregates to confuse people with philosophy. He taught them to help us loosen our grip on this false sense of I. The tighter we cling to the idea of self, the more we fear loss and change. The looser our grip, the freer our hearts become. If you understand the aggregates deeply, you see that suffering comes not from life itself, but from trying to make what is fluid into something solid. You can care for your body, honor your feelings, train your mind, but you stop clinging to them as you in an ultimate sense. A simple way to see for yourself. Sit quietly for a few minutes and watch your experience. Notice the body's sitting form. Feel any pleasant or unpleasant sensations feeling. See how you name those sensations perception. Notice thoughts or stories about them mental formations. All of this happens in the light of awareness consciousness. Which part is you? Where is the permanent self behind it all? You will find processes, not a fixed person. Seeing this not just as an idea, but as living reality is what frees the heart. A flame that teaches freedom. The flame of I appears real, but it is born and reborn moment by moment. When you see this clearly, fear begins to fade. You don't have to guard the flame so desperately. You can let it burn naturally, flickering, changing, without trying to freeze it in place. In this freedom, compassion grows. You see others clinging to their own flickering flames, defending them as me and mine. And you respond not with judgment, but with gentle understanding, because you know, just like you, they too are more than they believed, and less than they fear. When you understand the 5 aggregates, the illusion of self loosens its grip, and with that loosening, the mind finds space for peace, clarity, and the quiet courage to live lightly, like a flame dancing free in the wind. Part 3. Why the illusion of self creates suffering. It's one thing to hear that the self is an illusion. It's another thing to truly see how this illusion shapes our daily lives, and why clinging to it creates so much unnecessary suffering. The Buddha's insight into Anatta, knowing self, is not just an abstract truth. It's a direct doorway to freedom from the deep root of human pain. Clinging to a fixed self. When we believe in a solid, unchanging I, we naturally feel the need to protect it. The mind instinctively builds walls around this idea of self. We compare it, defend it, promote it, decorate it. We fear anything that might damage it. You can see this everywhere. We seek praise to prove I am good enough. We chase success to prove I am better than others. We fear criticism because it threatens our sense of worth. We cling to our youth and health because aging feels like the self is fading away. We build identities around status, money, talent, knowledge. Anything that makes this fragile, I feel more real and secure, the endless game of comparison. Think about how much energy you spend comparing yourself to others. Am I smarter, more attractive, more successful, more spiritual, less flawed? The self thrives on these comparisons. It feeds on feeling special, or it suffers when it feels inferior. Either way, you stay trapped. Social media magnifies this illusion every day. A curated picture here, a clever caption there, all carefully shaped to protect and display a certain identity. One moment, your self-image feels inflated. The next moment, it deflates with a single comment or a glimpse at someone who seems better. Fear of loss. When you believe the self is real and permanent, the reality of impermanence becomes terrifying. Aging, sickness, failure, and especially death all feel like threats to something that must be held together at all costs. You fear losing your looks, your abilities, your loved ones, your reputation. You fear being forgotten. You fear the emptiness of, if I lose all these things, who will I be? But what you fear losing is not a real, solid thing. It's a bundle of stories, memories, and attachments, shifting pieces we hold together with effort. We spend so much of our lives protecting this bundle, yet it's as fragile as a soap bubble in the wind. How the illusion breeds craving and aversion. The Buddha identified craving tanha as the root of suffering. But why do we crave? Because we believe we must feed and protect the separate I. We crave what boosts it: pleasure, approval, recognition, possessions. We reject what threatens it: discomfort, loss, blame, insult. This is why anger dosa arises when someone attacks your identity. This is why greed grows when you feel incomplete. This is why ignorance moha keeps you from seeing clearly. That all these struggles revolve around defending a self that isn't truly there, not the world, but the self. People often think suffering comes from difficult circumstances: losing a job, being insulted, getting old. But the core of suffering is not the situation itself. It's how the situation threatens the self you're clinging to. You lose a job, and it feels like I am worthless. Someone insults you, and it feels like I am being destroyed. You get sick, and it feels like I am disappearing. The circumstance may be painful, but the real torment is the fear that your precious I is under attack. When you see this directly, you glimpse how deeply the illusion traps you. The endless cycle. Because of this belief in self, we get stuck in an endless cycle. We crave pleasure and praise to protect the self. We feel aversion to pain and blame that threaten the self. We react with ignorance, never seeing that we're fighting shadows. This cycle fuels endless actions, good, bad, confused, which generate karma that shapes the next moments of existence. Round and round we go, lifetime after lifetime, until we look directly and see through the lie. Seeing through the fear, imagine you're holding a mask in front of your face. For years you forget it's a mask. You defend it fiercely whenever someone tries to pull it away. You live in fear that it might crack. When you finally dare to peek behind the mask, you discover you're not as solid as you thought. And that's not scary but freeing. You realize you're not the mask. You are the awareness that can watch all masks come and go. Freedom in softening the self. When you understand that the self is not fixed, you become less obsessed with proving yourself. You can receive praise without clinging to it. You can hear blame without crumbling under it. You can let go of old grudges and defenses. You don't stop having a personality or goals, but you hold them more lightly. You can work hard without needing your work to define you. You can love deeply without imprisoning others in your expectations. You can face aging and loss with a peaceful heart. A simple reflection: the next time you feel hurt, angry, or ashamed, pause. Ask yourself, who is threatened right now? Where is this I that must be defended so fiercely? Look at the sensations, the thoughts, the stories. Do they point to something solid or just passing moments? If you look honestly, you'll find that what hurts most is not the event itself, but the illusion that a fixed eye is under threat. The invitation. The Buddha's invitation is simple yet profound. Dare to look at your suffering. Dare to see what lies beneath it. When you see that clinging to self creates pain, you also see how letting go can bring peace. So the next time your mind whispers, "I am better than them," or "I am worthless," smile gently. See the illusion for what it is. Let it pass like a cloud across the sky, and rest in the open freedom that was always there. The freedom of a mind no longer trapped by a self that never truly existed. Part 4. The self does not truly exist, yet still operates. One of the most subtle and liberating insights in Buddhism is this: the self as an independent, fixed thing does not truly exist. And yet, paradoxically, it still seems to operate in our daily lives. How can something be unreal and yet appear so convincingly real? This question goes right to the heart of Buddhist wisdom, the middle way that avoids falling into extremes. The Buddha never said there is no experience, no person, no living presence. Instead, he pointed out that what we call the self is not what we think it is. It has no independent, unchanging core. It's a process, a pattern, not a permanent possession. Like a rainbow, a classic image used by many Buddhist teachers is that the self is like a rainbow. When the sun's rays pass through moisture in the air at just the right angle, you see a beautiful arc of color in the sky. The rainbow appears vivid, real, undeniable, yet you can't grasp it in your hands. There is no solid substance you can hold on to. In the same way, what you call I appears in the mind when the right conditions come together to body, sensations, perceptions, memories, thoughts, consciousness. Together, these create a vivid appearance, me. But if you try to find the me apart from these changing conditions, you find nothing solid at all, only the flow of conditions, arising and fading moment by moment, conditioned by causes. This is what Buddhism means by dependent origination pratityasamutpa. Nothing exists independently. Everything comes into being because of causes and conditions. And when those conditions change, the thing changes or disappears. The self is the same. It does not stand apart from the body. Feelings, thoughts, habits, and environment change any part, and your experience of self changes too. For example, when you're healthy and comfortable, you may feel confident and strong. When you're sick or exhausted, your sense of self shrinks or feels weak. In deep sleep, your usual I disappears altogether. Yet when you wake up, the conditions return and the I appears again. A useful fiction. This is not to say the self is utterly meaningless. In daily life, the sense of I is practical and necessary. Without it, we couldn't function, communicate, or take responsibility. It helps us say, I will do this, I won't do that. I take care of my family. In this sense, the self is a useful fiction, like a story we agree on so we can live and cooperate with each other. It's not a lie, but it's also not an absolute truth. The problem comes when we forget it's a fiction and believe it's a solid fact. Why this insight matters? Why does it matter that the self is empty of fixed substance? Because seeing through this illusion softens our suffering. So much anxiety, pride, fear, and conflict come from taking the self too seriously. When we believe in a solid I, we feel personally insulted when someone criticizes us. We feel our worth is under threat when we fail or lose status. We cling to youth, looks, possessions, terrified that losing them means losing me. But when you see the self as a rainbow, a beautiful appearance with no solid core, your relationship to life changes. Praise and blame lose their sting. You can care for the body and mind, but without clinging to them as mine in an absolute sense. You can accept change and loss with greater equanimity. The self still functions. So, if the self is not ultimately real, why does it still feel so active? Because it's a mental construct the mind uses to organize experience. When you think I am hungry, the mind is noting that this body needs food. When you think I want to learn, the mind is setting an intention to grow. These thoughts and intentions work well in daily life, as long as you don't cling to them as representing an unchanging core. Problems arise only when you forget that the I is a label for a fluid process, not a fixed owner. Life without the heavy burden. When you understand this, a deep relaxation happens inside. You don't have to keep patching up the mask of self. You don't have to perform constantly to prove that I am good enough. You don't have to defend every opinion or win every argument to protect an ego that isn't really there. You can still show up for life fully. You still play your roles: parent, child, friend, teacher, student, but you hold these roles lightly, knowing they are temporary conditions, not your ultimate essence. Freedom in everyday moments. Imagine facing criticism at work. If you believe the self is fixed, you feel wounded. They attacked me. But if you see the self as conditioned and empty, you can receive the feedback, reflect on it, and act wisely, without feeling the sting that your very I has been torn apart. Or imagine aging. Instead of fighting each wrinkle or gray hair as an assault on who I am, you see them as part of the natural flow of conditions. The body changes, but the rainbow of self keeps shifting too, and you ride the changes with more grace. The rainbow teaches humility. Seeing that the self is like a rainbow also makes you more compassionate. You see that others, too, are clinging to their rainbow, defending it, comparing it, suffering over it. You can meet them with understanding instead of judgment, because you know how fragile and empty that illusion really is. A daily reflection. When you feel stressed about who you are, your image, your status, your future, pause and ask, is this rainbow truly mine? Look at the conditions. Notice how thoughts and feelings come and go. Notice how your sense of self appears and disappears depending on mood, health, praise, or blame. The more you see this, the more you can live with freedom. You don't lose yourself. You just stop clinging to a self that was never fixed to begin with. A lightness of being. In the end, the teaching that the self does not truly exist yet still functions is not meant to make you feel lost or hollow. It's an invitation to live lightly, like a rainbow that appears beautifully when conditions are right, then fades without regret when conditions change. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed to, not erasing your humanity, but understanding it so deeply that you no longer fear the shifting dance of life. You simply watch the rainbow, enjoy its colors, and bow to the mystery that makes it possible. Part 5. Seeing non-self does not mean rejecting life. When people first hear about the Buddhist teaching of Anatta, non-self, they often feel uneasy or even afraid. It can sound cold, empty, or like an invitation to erase your humanity altogether. Some people wonder, if there's no self, who loves, who works, who makes choices, does it mean I should stop caring about my life, my family, my dreams? But the truth is, seeing non-self does not mean rejecting life. It means relating to life more wisely, with less fear, less clinging, and a deeper sense of freedom, not denying the human experience. The Buddha never taught that we should deny our experience. You feel hunger, you feel joy, you feel pain, you feel love. All of these are real experiences. You still have a body to care for, a mind to train, relationships to honor. The difference is that you see these experiences for what they are, dynamic processes, not possessions of a fixed I. You are not asked to deny your life. You are invited to see through the illusion that there is a permanent owner behind all these changing experiences. A simple analogy: the river. Imagine a river. It flows. It carries water, leaves, fish, reflections of sunlight. The river does not deny its own flowing. But if you try to find a single drop that defines the river, you can't. The river is real as a process, but it has no unchanging core. You are like this river. You feel, you think, you act. But if you look for an unchanging I at the center of all this movement, you find only movement, no fixed thing you can hold in your hand, living fully without clinging. When you truly see non-self, you do not become numb or indifferent. In fact, you often become more alive and loving because you are less trapped by fear. You can love deeply without turning that love into a prison. You can care for people without trying to possess them. When you see that your thoughts and feelings come and go, you don't get lost in every passing mood. You feel sadness, but you know it's not your true identity. You feel joy, but you don't cling to it as something you must keep forever. This frees you to experience life fully, moment by moment, without being a hostage to every rise and fall. Not a robot, but more human. Some fear that seeing non-self means becoming robotic or detached. But it's not about suppressing emotions or pretending not to care. It's about relating to your thoughts and feelings with awareness. When anger arises, you know it's a mental state, not me. When fear arises, you see it as a passing wave, not who I am. This creates space between awareness and reaction. You can respond with wisdom instead of being driven blindly by every emotion. This does not make you cold. It makes you kinder. You see that everyone else is also caught in their passing moods, clinging to thoughts as me. You become more patient and compassionate because you see how fragile this illusion is for all of us. You still act and choose. Realizing non-self does not mean you stop living responsibly. You still choose, you still make plans, you still keep promises. The difference is that you do these things with a lighter touch. When you fail at something, you don't fall into despair because your identity is not bound up in success. When you succeed, you don't become arrogant because you see the success came from countless conditions. Not just you, your actions become freer, wiser, and often more effective because they are not driven by the constant burden of protecting a fixed ego. Love without fear. One of the most beautiful gifts of understanding knowing self is how it transforms love. Most people's love is mixed with fear. What if I lose them? What if they stop loving me? What will happen to me? This fear turns love into attachment, control, and sometimes suffering. When you see the self as a flowing process, you realize that relationships, too, are dynamic. You cherish people while they are here. You love them deeply. You care for them sincerely, but without trying to own them or freeze them in place. Love becomes less about you complete me and more about may we be free together, may we grow together, may we let each other go when the time comes. This love is spacious, fearless, and far more resilient. Your unique presence still matters. Knowing self does not mean you disappear into nothingness. Each person is a unique combination of conditions. Your karma, your upbringing, your choices shape how you show up in the world. But these conditions do not create a permanent essence. They create a pattern, like a unique song that appears when the right notes are played together. When the conditions change, the song fades. This insight makes your life even more precious. You see that your existence is rare and fleeting, a beautiful opportunity to bring compassion, wisdom, and kindness into the world before the song ends. Living the middle way. The Buddha called this understanding the middle way. It avoids the extremes of believing in a permanent self on one hand or denying your human experience on the other. You live fully, but you don't cling blindly. You take care of your body, but you know you are not just your body. You honor your thoughts and feelings, but you don't become their prisoner. You engage in the world, but you remember it's all part of a greater flow, a daily practice. Whenever you feel yourself gripped by fear or pride, pause and ask, is this feeling me, or is it just passing through? When you catch yourself clinging to your image or status, remember, this too is just conditions coming together, little by little. This softens the tight knot of I am, lets your heart rest in a deeper freedom, full humanity, full freedom. Seeing knowing self does not strip you of your humanity. It gives it back to you in its truest form. You live, you feel, you laugh, you cry, but you hold it all with an open hand. Nothing to grasp tightly, nothing to defend fiercely, nothing to fear losing so desperately. You become more human, not less, alive, present, and fearless enough to dance with the changing river of life moment by precious moment. Part 6. Mindfulness. Seeing through the illusion. The heart of Buddhist wisdom is this: enlightenment is not some supernatural state reserved for mystics on mountaintops. It is simply a radical, unwavering clarity, an awakening to how things actually are. At the core of this awakening is a simple yet profound truth. Everything you cling to is I. Thoughts, feelings, memories, the body itself is impermanent, conditioned, and empty of a fixed self. So how do you see this truth for yourself? The answer is mindfulness, sati in Pali, the art of clear, steady awareness that looks directly, without distraction or distortion. Noticing the dance of thoughts, sit quietly for just a few moments and watch your mind. Sooner or later, thoughts appear, sometimes calm, sometimes loud, sometimes subtle like whispers drifting through a dream. With mindfulness, you don't push them away or cling to them. You simply watch, A thought comes, stays for a moment, then fades. You might notice, I'm planning dinner, or I'm worrying about tomorrow, or I'm remembering an old argument. Where do these thoughts come from? Where do they go? Do they have an owner? Are they really you? Or do they just arise when conditions are right? Mindfulness shows you that thoughts are events, not possessions. They come and go like clouds in an open sky. Seeing emotions flow. The same is true for emotions. Anger, joy, sadness, envy. They feel so solid when they are here, yet mindfulness reveals they too are passing guests. When you are mindful of an emotion, you watch it arise, peak, and pass away. You see how it's triggered by conditions. Words you hear, memories you replay, worries about the future. Without mindfulness, you say, I am angry, and the anger takes over your identity. With mindfulness, you see anger is here. You can hold it gently without feeding it, without fighting it, just watching it transform. You realize the emotion is not you. It's a visitor, not a resident, watching the body change. Mindfulness also reveals the changing nature of the body. Most of the time, we live in our heads or on autopilot, missing the truth that the body is always in motion, breathing, aging, healing, breaking down, renewing itself. When you sit mindfully, you might feel the breath rising and falling, the heartbeat, the warmth in your hands. You see how each moment the body shifts in subtle ways. This body that we protect so fiercely is not a fixed thing. It's a process, a temporary gathering of earth, water, fire, and air, a habit of identification. So why do we cling so tightly to this sense of self if it's so obviously fluid? Because the mind has built the habit of identification from childhood. We learn to say, I think, I feel, I want. The mind bundles the constant stream of experiences into a single story. This is me. It's like tying hundreds of sticks together with string and calling the bundle one thing. If you remove the string, the habit of identification, the sticks are just sticks, each doing its own thing, coming and going according to causes and conditions. Mindfulness cuts the string. This is what mindfulness does. It gently cuts the string, moment by moment. You see thoughts as thoughts, feelings as feelings, sensations as sensations. You stop gluing them all together into an I. When you don't cling to them as me or mine, you see their true nature, impermanent, conditioned, empty of a solid core, far from making you passive or detached. This awareness makes you clear, open, and compassionate. You see how fragile and fleeting your own mind is, and you see the same in others. Understanding this, you live more lightly and relate more gently. Nothing supernatural. Enlightenment, in this sense, is profoundly natural. It's not a magical trance or secret knowledge. It's simply the mind seeing things as they are, moment by moment. The breath comes and goes. Not my breath in an ultimate sense, but the body breathing itself. A thought appears. Not my thought in an ultimate sense, but the mind doing what the mind does. This doesn't mean you stop acting or caring. You still plan, remember, love, create, but you do it without being imprisoned by the illusion that all of it defines some permanent you. Practical mindfulness. You don't need to retreat to a cave to practice this. You can start right now. When you feel stressed, pause and notice. What thoughts are here? What feelings? When you hear praise or blame, notice the reaction in your body and mind. Does it touch an identity? When you breathe, Feel each inhale and exhale. See how it arises on its own, flows naturally, then passes away. The more you look, the more you see. The so-called I is just a convenient label for an ever-changing flow. Freedom and clarity. When this seeing deepens, fear begins to fade. Why cling so tightly to what cannot stay? Why defend what was never fixed to begin with? Instead of running from life's impermanence, you meet it fully, you live more honestly, love more openly, and die when the time comes. With a heart that knows nothing essential is lost, because nothing was ever truly owned, the ordinary miracle in the end. The miracle of mindfulness is not that it gives you special powers. It's that it removes the confusion that made you suffer unnecessarily. It reveals that this ordinary life, thoughts, feelings, bodies, relationships, is already sacred when you see it without illusion. Moment by moment, breath by breath, mindfulness invites you to wake up, not to some distant paradise, but to the simple, radiant freedom of seeing things exactly as they are. Part 7. Living freely by letting go of the illusion of self. As long as we cling to the illusion of a solid self, we carry an invisible burden on our shoulders. Everything is measured against me. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I better? Am I worse? Am I worthy? Am I failing? This constant comparison and protection turn life into an exhausting struggle. But when you start to see clearly that this I is just a convenient label for a collection of changing conditions, the burden naturally drops away. You no longer need to prove you're better than anyone. You no longer have to guard an image of yourself day and night. You no longer fear every threat to your pride or reputation, a deep inner lightness. When you let go of this illusion, an unexpected lightness fills your life. You still live in the world. You still work, love, and contribute. But inwardly, you're not weighed down by the need to defend an image. When others praise you, you feel gratitude, but you don't cling to it. When they criticize you, you listen, but you're not shattered. Success comes. You welcome it without arrogance. Failure comes. You learn from it without falling into despair. Everything becomes more transparent, more fluid, like a mirror reflecting images, beautiful or ugly, yet never holding on to any of them. The mind becomes spacious and at ease, less anger, envy, and fear. Look closely and you'll see. Every bit of anger, envy, or fear is tied to defending a fixed sense of self. We get angry when someone wounds our pride. We feel jealous when someone seems to outshine our eye. We fear loss because we think losing what we have means losing who we are. But when you see that there is no fixed tie to defend, these negative emotions lose their grip. Anger has no hook. Jealousy has nothing to compare. Fear softens because you understand there is no self that can truly be destroyed. The power of unconditional love. When the illusion of self drops away, love remains, but it becomes freer, purer. You don't love someone because they complete your ego or make you feel worthy. You love simply because love flows naturally from an unburdened heart. This love is not possessive or controlling. It does not cling. It does not demand. It allows others to be who they are, to come and go as life unfolds. You can hold someone close without imprisoning them in your expectations. You can care deeply yet let go when the time is right. without resentment, without regret. This is the power of love when it is not tangled up with the illusion of mine. True freedom. This is true freedom. Freedom from the tight chains of illusion. It is not freedom given by someone else, nor a reward you earn after death. It is here and now, hidden beneath the layers of clinging and false identity. The Buddhist said, "One who sees non-self has reached the shore of liberation." Seeing non-self does not mean you become nothing. It means you are no longer trapped in endless loops of craving, anger, and confusion. You do not live as a prisoner of fear or pride. You touch the core of your own spacious mind, clear, open, and unbound, an ongoing journey. Realizing non-self is not a final achievement you tick off your list. It is a living, breathing insight that deepens every day you look honestly. Each time you notice a thought or a feeling and see, this is not who I truly am, you loosen the knot a little more. Each time you drop the habit of clinging, you taste a little more freedom. Each moment you rest in pure awareness, free from labels and stories. You stand on the shore of liberation. No teacher can give this freedom to you. No one can take it away once you see it for yourself. Freedom is already here. This freedom does not take you away from life. It lets you live life more fully, present, awake, without fear of losing what was never yours to keep. You can still play your roles, wear your names, care for your loved ones, but you carry no hidden burden on your back. You become like the open sky. Clouds come and go, storms rise and pass, but the vastness remains untouched. This vastness is your true nature, always here, patiently waiting for you to remember. May you have the courage to live lightly, to love deeply, and to walk freely through this fleeting life, unchained by the illusion of a self that was never truly there. I hope this video has planted a small seed of awareness in you, a seed that helps you see why the self you cling to is really just an illusion built from habit and ignorance. Take a moment to observe yourself. Every thought, every feeling, every wave of joy or sadness comes and goes like drifting clouds in the sky, yet we grow up calling all of this me. And because we hold so tightly to that idea, we spend our lives protecting it, defending it, polishing it, fearing that it might be hurt or diminished. But when you pause, look deeply, and truly see, you realize there is no solid, unchanging I at the center of it all. Just an endless flow of conditions coming together and falling apart. Seeing this clearly, you began to lay down the burden you didn't even know you were carrying. Seeing through the illusion, the first step to real peace. True peace does not come from more possessions, status, or constant praise. Real peace appears when you are no longer bound by the illusion of a fixed self. You start to see no one can deeply wound you if there is no solid self that must be defended. No one can make you truly jealous if there is no fixed self to compare or protect. Nothing can chain you forever when you understand that everything changes and nothing can truly be possessed. When you see through the illusion, you begin to live like a free person. Free in your mind, free in how you love, free even in the face of loss or difficulty. You can start right now. Many people believe that seeing non-self is something distant, reserved for monks and sages on mountaintops. But the truth is you can practice right here in your everyday life. When a thought appears, pause and ask, is this really me? When a strong emotion arises, look at it. Will this stay forever? When someone praises or criticizes you, smile inwardly. These words are not who I am. Each moment you look in this way, you loosen the grip of the old habit that says, "This is me. This is mine." Little by little, the illusion weakens and your heart rests lighter and freer. This journey is your own. If this video has been helpful for you, I invite you to subscribe to the Dharma Journey. Here, we'll continue exploring Buddhist wisdom, meditation, and the art of letting go. Every video is a small door, an invitation to step deeper into freedom, stillness, and a clearer understanding of who you truly are beneath all the labels. Have you ever had a moment of insight where you suddenly realized that yourself is not as solid as you once thought? What happened in that moment? How did it change you? I would love for you to share your experience in the comments. Your story might encourage someone else who is just beginning to question this illusion and step on to their own path of freedom. May you have a peaceful day, clear enough to see things as they really are, patient enough to let go of what weighs you down, and kind enough to live lightly and love fully in this ever-changing life.